unless you're a professional or amateur diviners. Most of the time, people cast because of the matters related to their own. The own related matter here means we need to observe the self-line from the hexagram. As I've touched a little bit self-line in many of my previous videos, you may start to get some ideas about what is the self-line means. In another word, when you look at the hexagram, there are so many things involved. Which lines represent to the quadrants? The answer is the self-line. Most of the time, self-line represent to the quadrant. However, self-line is not necessary to be our own self or to the quadrant. I mean, not necessary to be a person. What if a question asking like this? How well is this land will be? Or why my dog has no appetite to eat? What is the self-line for this now? What is up? I'm Alfred, the King Wen Oracle specialist. Let's talk about the self-line in this video. In many of the King Wen classical or modern King Wen teaching material, they said self-line must be strong enough to get an auspicious signal. This is not necessary to be true. What is strong here means, in King Wen Oracle general terms, self-line can be strong when generated by the month and the day. I had already covered month and day in this video. Make sure you check this out to understand why month and day can provide energy to the line. Some people who have learned King Wen Oracle make an argument that the month can't be providing an energy to the lines. Only day can provide the energy to the lines. Both are not wrong, just that how detailed the system can go with. Our framework is designed to be the month and the day. And if I want to, I will also include the year and the time to the energy system. If you keep staying with me until the very end, you will understand the difference. So I will not discuss something that not so nutritious in this video. In classical, when self-line is strong, it means self-line is in a good condition. But what I wanted to explain here is the prosperity on self-line is only one of the conditions to read the line. It's not the absolute factor. Also, when you learn King Wen Oracle, you need to first split out the two concepts. First, the prosperity and the line function are two different things that need to split them out. Many classical or modern learning approach mix these two up when doing the reading. This is making the learner getting a bit challenging when trying to read the line. I see many people read the lines so inconsistent because of mixing them up while doing the reading. Inconsistency means that the system being used is not properly developed yet. Remember the key concept here. It is another paid content that never been taught by others, but you got it free here. The prosperity of self-line doesn't usually indicate a good or bad signal. We need to observe what is the self-line holding. Let's talk about the self-line and the 6 kings. 6 kings will make more sense to decide the good or bad compared to just the prosperous of the self-line. If self-line is holding a useful element or the source element, which is the Yongshen and Yuanshen, basically it can be read as a good sign. If self-line is holding a revenging or a dreadful element, 仇忌神, things may getting frustrated. In my own system approach, we don't really use or call it the useful element. Many people having the misconception regarding what it is. Very rare can really interpret correctly what is a useful element means. This is also one of the reasons many people learning puzzle system keep arguing this for never ending. In fact, it has a clear definition of it, just that not many realize about it. If you learn puzzle, I think this is also one of your puzzle that looking for the solution. However, let's just leave this behind. I will explain more in the later video. Come back to the useful element. When we ask about the money matter, self-line is holding wealth line. It means self-line is holding a useful element, which we can read it as there is a good income, which is a good sign. Now, the strong and the weakness of the line means the extent of the wealth. If the self-line is prosperous, we can read it as a very good income. If the self-line is weak, we can read it as there is an income, but not that good. You see now, this is why you need to split the prosperous and the function into two separate layers. If you don't make this clear now, you will always confuse yourself no matter how long you read the hexagram. Most of the time, you will end up reading the hexagram with a feeling. Reading hexagram by feeling is something very, very dangerous. Check back all my previous videos to see why it is not so recommended. So, when the self-line is holding sibling, which is the dreadful element, you can read it as losing money. If the self-line is very strong, it means bankrupt. If self-line is very weak, it probably just losing some pocket money. In our system, we have a very well-developed prosperous indicator system. You can understand easily how strong or how weak of every line with the numbers. So now you see, the prosperous of the self-line are not really that direct bonding. The 6 keys are much more important in this case. If you wanted to ask about health, observing at the self-line shall be enough to give you the answer. If self-line is prosperous, basically it indicates a fit condition. But when the self-line is getting hurt, it means health is getting a problem. However, if self-line is strong but get hurt, you can explain it as the querent is getting a poor health but still manage to fight with the health problem. Just like how you deal with a normal influenza. If self-line is getting hurt and very weak, you can read it as the body immune system won't resolve on its own. When we wanted to understand deeper on the reading, we can't just read with the self-line. For instance, if asking about money subject, we can't just observe the self-line. We need to observe both self-line and the wealth line. In my system, I call this the meta element, which is the xiangsheng. Meta element and useful element share a little bit of commonality. However, this is topic about the useful element, yongsheng, which will not be covered in this video. I will explain it in another video. Stay tuned. When we observe both self and wealth line, we can explain what is going on between these two rows. There is one more very important concept I need to mention here. In many classical, it mentioned it is considered auspicious if self-line can be generated from a useful element or get a combination with the self-line. But this is only true for the first layer of reading. We still need to observe on other moving line or hidden moving line. I will explain this in another video too. Don't worry too much if you can't catch up with me at this moment. Let's get back to the self-line. The 6 keys that the self-line is holding basically indicating the current situation or current status. Take money matter as an example again. Self-line holding parent. It means work for toil, making hard-earned money, not able to generate an income source. If self-line is holding sibling, sibling is like your own brothers and sister. It indicates the sharing of an asset. In another word, it is a financial loss, increase in expenses, stress for cash. There is one more important concept you need to have it here. Many people tend to say sibling also means spending money more than you're generating. But that is not necessary to be true. As I've just mentioned earlier in this video, lines, action, and extent are 2 different layers of reading. You have to split them out. I've also explained this concept in this video. Go to this video if you never watched it yet. Spend more than a person make is only applicable when the sibling line is stronger than the wealth line. But in many traditional King Wen or even a modern King Wen, people hardly have a rigorous term of the line prosperous. But with my system, you can use the point system to have a very good clear cut about what is the definition of strong and weak. If this channel can hit 1,000 subscriptions, I will make this topic to share to the world. If self-line is holding offspring line, offspring is a source element to the wealth line. It means the income source. It also means able to generate income in a smart way. Offspring also means leisurely, stressless living. But when offspring line get restrained, it means all of these positive matters will be hard to get. Parent restricted to the offspring line. So when the parent line is in moving, it means your source of income will having a difficulty. The extent of the negative impact can be explained with the prosperous. Bear in mind, it is 2 layers of different reading. If self-line is holding wealth line, it means self-line himself can make a very good money. But we still need to observe whether the self-line is facing any suffering from other lines. If the self-line is holding the officer line, it means the financial status is under control. Use the money you earn to control over than excessive expenses or fight with the competition. These all are only some very basic reading according to what self-line is holding. Always remember, we can't conclude the hexagram with just reading the self-line. Now you already have the concept of what it is when the self-line is holding with the 5 of the 6 skins. In this example, you understand that the good or bad still depend on the generating and the restriction cycle. And the extent of the good or bad is to read the event severity. However, there is also one more term we need to include, which is the 12th stage of growth. Don't worry too much about it for now. I will explain this in the later video. At least, now you understand why reading in King Wen can be so much vivid and so much systematic. The self-line concept I'm explaining here also apply the same thing to the object line. For example, asking about the same matter, about wealth. Self line represents you and the object line represents your business partner. Simply observing the 6 kings holding by both self and object line can tell the effect of each person. In the next coming out video, I will explain more about the self line. So if you enjoy my video, give me a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next video.